All right, so we're diving into something a lot of you have been asking about, and that's like how to really get a grip on English. And specifically, we're talking podcasts versus language learning apps.
Right. Yeah. It's a common question, and the materials you sent are really interesting. It's like this whole debate about which one's better for really mastering the language. So we'll dig into
Are,
that.
are we talking like is one gonna totally outperform the other, or is it more about finding that sweet spot? Like maybe mixing the two.
Yeah, that's what we're going to look at because your sources actually bring up some really good points about both, like the whole immersive thing with podcasts
Hmm.
and the structured learning in apps. So yeah, I think it's more nuanced than just picking one.
Okay, well, let's break it down, starting with podcasts. Um, your research mentions immersive listening, like just hearing real English conversations, accents, all that good stuff. Why is that such a game changer?
Well, you know how when you learn a new language, sometimes it feels like you're just memorizing words and rules?
Yeah,
It's like textbook learning,
yeah.
right? But podcasts throw you right into the mix. You're hearing how people actually talk, the flow, the slang, the little things that you don't really get from a textbook.
Makes sense. And it's not just like one type of English either, right? Your sources talk about all the different content out there.
Exactly. That's a huge. Plus, you've got news, comedy, interviews, you name it. And you can find podcasts that match your interests, which makes it way more fun to learn.
And you can listen anywhere, right? Like while you're working out, commuting, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
it fits into your life, which is super important for consistency. And another big point from your sources is the cost factor. A ton of podcasts are free.
Right. That's always a good thing. Okay, so let's switch gears to the apps. What really jumps out from what you've read about how they approach learning?
Structure is the big one here. Apps are all about giving you a clear path. They break down grammar, vocab, pronunciation,
Yeah.
everything step by step.
Oh, yeah, and they often have those game-like features, right? Like points and rewards.
Yeah, your sources mention gamification stuff like Duolingo streaks and levels,
Hmm.
and it definitely plays a role in keeping you motivated.
I can see that, like, it makes it less intimidating, especially when you're first starting out.
Totally. And those little wins,
Hmm.
can really keep you going. Now, whether that kind of motivation lasts long term, that's something your sources kind of debate.
Interesting. Okay, so now for the big question, podcasts versus apps. What were the main takeaways from your research?
Well, your sources seem to agree that podcasts are the kings of immersion. You get that authentic language experience and you're learning without even realizing it sometimes. But they might lack that structured approach, the step-by-step learning path.
Right, which is where the apps shine, but they can sometimes feel a little artificial, like it's not always how people actually speak.
Exactly. So both have their strengths and weaknesses, and that's why your sources bring up this idea of maybe not choosing one over the other, but finding a way to combine them.
A hybrid approach.
Yeah, exactly. Because why not leverage the best of both worlds? You could use podcasts to get that ear tuned to real English, different accents, the flow, and then use an app to dive deeper into specific grammar points or vocab you come across.
That makes a lot of sense, kind of like a one-two punch.
Exactly. And that seems to be the biggest takeaway from your research. It's not about picking a winner. It's about figuring out how these tools can work together to help you reach your English learning goals.
So ultimately, it comes down to what works best for you, right? Like your learning style and what you're trying to achieve.
Absolutely. And this brings up a key question for you listening. How can you fit both podcasts and apps into your routine in a way that really works for you? Maybe you listen to a podcast on your commute and then do a quick app session later to reinforce what you heard. It's about finding that synergy.
Finding that perfect balance.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, there you have it, folks. Another deep dive complete.